Order, order. We start with questions. Secretary of State for Science, Innovation and Technology, Greg Smith.
Number one, sir.
Mr Speaker, the Government and industry are working together to accelerate the shared rural network and deliver substantial improvements to outdoor 4G mobile coverage across the UK. In the last 2 months, the Government has activated 13 publicly funded masts across the UK, and there are now 27 government-funded extended area service mast upgrades delivering 4G.
Greg Smith.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I'm grateful to the Minister for that answer, but in my constituency that's only 40, 50, 60 miles away from this House, there are villages like Cuddington that are still mobile, complete not spots. So can the Minister explain to the House how quickly the Government intend to move on activating the shared rural network to ensure that no rural community is left without a reliable mobile signal?
Well, I know about Cuddington because he told me yesterday about Cuddington, and Cuddington in many ways is typical. In fact, it's so typical of many of the villages of England that it has featured in Midsummer Murders, which is, of course, fictional, a bit like the previous government's financial affairs. But I am very keen. I know we just prayed that we didn't. The desire to please is not part of what ministers are meant to do, but I do have a desire to please him and his constituents, and the government will work as fast as we can with the industry to try and develop 4G in his constituency. I'm very happy to arrange for a meeting between him and my officials to make sure that he has street-by-street analysis of how we can do this.
Minister, Shadow Minister Dr Ben Spence.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. We welcome the recent update on expansion of 4G to rural areas under the Shared Rural Network project, particularly for businesses and farmers who are under such pressure at the moment with the recent Treasury announcements. Which Secretary of State should we thank for the planning, approval and funding of this vital infrastructure project?
Of course, we support developing the whole of the plans under the Shared Rural Network, and for that matter, Project Gigabit, which were regularly announced by the previous government, but they never actually put any money into the budget. There was never a line in a decent budget that said this money is guaranteed for the future. We are putting our money where our mouth is, and we are determined to make sure that everybody has proper connectivity, because, frankly, it's essential to people's businesses, whether you're a farmer or any other kind of business up and down the land, and we will deliver that.
Naismith.
Question number 2, Mr Speaker.
Mr Speaker, we are improving digital connectivity in rural areas by rolling out 30 Project Gigabit contracts, filling in gaps that are not being met commercially, predominantly in rural areas, and by delivering better 4G mobile coverage and eliminating partial not spots through the Shared Rural Network.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. A number of my constituents in the village of Haslington have been in touch with me about poor mobile signal and digital connectivity in the village. In one particular example, a constituent was unable to contact emergency services in the event of a medical emergency. So does the Minister agree with me that the lack of progress on connectivity in our rural areas under 14 years of Conservative government is unacceptable? And will he meet with me to discuss how we can improve matters for my constituents?
I'm very happy to meet with him, not necessarily with the honourable member that I'm already meeting with, but he's right that Haslington is a bit like Cuddington, exactly the same set of problems, and I'm sure that there are many members across the House who have very similar issues that they're burning to raise with me. I'm very happy to make specific arrangements so that members can meet with officials and go through these things case by case. Just in particular in relation to the 999 emergency that he refers to, I would be really grateful to have specific details, because all 999 calls from mobile phones should automatically roam onto another available network if they have no signal from their own provider. So I really do want to get to the bottom of the issue in that case.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Could I add to the Minister's list of beautiful villages to visit the wonderful village of Cranley, Shamley Green, Peaslake, Gompshall and Bramley, who all are having big problems with their 4 and 5G mobile phone reception, not least because they need to use apps to pay for parking. Would he meet with me to discuss what more can be done to help these beautiful but also very economically important places?
I'm very happy to meet with him as well. It's a series of audiences. I mean, I'm not the Pope, but it feels like it's a series of audiences that I'm going to be having over the next few weeks. But he's got villages, I've got villages. If only he knew somebody who'd been the Chancellor in recent years, who'd been able to deliver the financial support that we really needed to secure this investment.
Swallow! Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My constituents in the village of Crowthorne will really welcome the action that the government is taking to tackle this massive issue and support connectivity for phones and for 4G in rural and semi-rural constituencies. Can I ask the Minister for a meeting to discuss the issues affecting Crowthorne?
I'm getting more popular day by day, which is unusual in my life. But, of course, I'm very happy to discuss the issues in Crowthorne. I should say that one of the things that really concerns me, Mr. Speaker, is that quite often the published version of what connectivity is available in everybody's constituency will say that you've got 92, 93, 95% of connectivity from all 4 operators. But actually, if you stand there with a mobile phone, you will not have any connectivity whatsoever. Now, I've written to Ofcom. Ofcom have written back to me, and they've said, for instance, that where the precise location of the coverage may be above or below the predicted level, leading to some consumers not getting the service they expected. There's a phrase for that, but indeed.
Josh Baberinda.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Organisations like Tech Resort in my constituency support people who are digitally excluded to become digitally included. Now, the Minister has a long list of meetings to go to, so I wonder whether instead I can ask the Right Honourable Member for Hove and Portslade whether he might come along the coast to the sunniest town in the UK to come and visit Tech Resort and hear more about the funding that they need to be able to power their work.
I'm pleased to say that the Secretary of State says that he will indeed visit when he possibly can. But look, there's a really important point here, which is that poor digital connectivity excludes so many communities up and down this country. We have no chance of creating the economic growth that we want in this country unless we take the whole of the country with us, which is why it's so disgraceful that we've not had a proper digital inclusion strategy for 10 years. That's something we're going to remedy.
John Mayo.
Number 4, sir.
Question number 4.
Yes, Project Gigabit has always been designed to deliver gigabit-capable broadband to premises that will not be met by the market, regardless of whether they are in urban or rural areas. And most premises, of course, deemed uncommercial by the market are in rural areas, but consistent evidence suggests that we will also need to intervene in some urban areas to achieve full national gigabit coverage. Funding will continue to be provided where it is needed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There's 11,500 houses which are going to be connected to fibre as a result of the Conservative policy of Project Gigabit. There's real concern that some of those are going to miss out if money is redirected from the rural communities to the urban communities. After the family farm tax, please can we cut rural communities a break?
The vast majority of the spending in Project Gigabit, more than 90%, has of course gone to rural areas because those are the areas most in need. And there's absolutely no change in our policy to that. But there are some urban areas where there are significant problems as well, and we need to rectify those. He points out some of the issues in his own constituency. I'm very happy to provide him also with the meeting if he wants. And he's nodded, I see.
That's great. Alex Bellinger.
Number 5, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we want to boost investment in innovation and enable people in all regions of the UK to benefit from an innovation-led economy. That's why the spending review supports the UK's R&D ambition, with total government investment in R&D rising to a record £20.4 billion in 25-26. This is allowing us to extend innovation accelerators for another year, which will continue to bolster the West Midlands high-potential innovation clusters, funding the Midlands Midlands Industrial Ceramics Group through the Strengths in Places Fund and supports the region's investment zone.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last month I was lucky to join Halesowen College as they opened their new digital and media campus at Trinity Point alongside the Mayor of the West Midlands, Richard Parker. Would the Minister agree with me that excellent institutions like this are fundamental to supporting innovation across our region, and would she be so kind to come and visit us at some point in the near future?
I'm grateful to my honourable friend for that question, and I do agree with my honourable friend that educational institutes such as are crucial for innovation. Halesowen College is one of the 5 colleges across the region supporting innovation and technical excellence within the local community through the Further Education and Innovation Fund. These facilities and expertise will help businesses develop a workforce with skills to take advantage of them, and I'll be delighted to visit the Trinity Point College if the opportunity arises.
Victoria College, Liberal Democrats, but
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Increasing levels of innovation across the UK are crucial to unlocking growth and also solving some of our biggest problems. That's why I was worried to read about the Secretary of State when talking about multinational tech companies and saying that we have to apply a sense of statecraft to working with companies. Would the Secretary of State agree with me that what we should be doing is working with companies, focusing on increasing healthy competition and supporting innovative UK businesses so they're not left with the choice of being bought up or leaving the UK?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I said, increasing productivity right across the UK is fundamental to our mission to kick-start an economic growth, and through our industrial strategy and development of local growth plans, we will build on local strengths to ensure that public and private R&D investment right across the UK helps local places to reach their potential, and we are strengthening the relationships with businesses to deliver for British people.
Tony Ball.
Question number 6, please, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The UK is a founding member of the International Network of AI Safety Institutes. The network convenes for the first time today in San Francisco.
Tony Ball.
The UK is a global leader in AI development, which brings many opportunities, but we know that the risks associated with AI can only be managed by global cooperation. What steps is the department taking to ensure the UK works with other main leaders in AI development, the USA and also China, to ensure that the most advanced frontier AI models are safe for global consumers?
My honourable friend is completely right to say that safety has to be there from the outset. We want our country to safely explore all the opportunities that AI offers, but it can only do so if people are reassured that safety is there from the outset. The UK Safety Institute is at the forefront. We were the first safety institute, and we are at the forefront of delivering international safety as well as domestic safety, currently working on an international review of the science of AI safety, which draws on the expertise of 30 countries.
Steve Darling.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And question 13. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I ask the Minister what steps he will take to ensure that people who are visually impaired are able to engage with...
Can I just say, we're not up to that number. We'll now go to Chair of the Select Committee, Chair Morrow.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And my honourable friend rightly raises the need for research into frontier AI safety, and I welcome the government's commitment to protecting the public from future AI risks. But AI affects all our lives already. Today, my Select Committee launches an inquiry into algorithms, AI and their role in spreading online harm, as we saw in the terrible riots over the summer. As we build our evidence, how is he building the evidence base on AI, online harms and their social impact right now?
I'm extremely grateful to the Chair of the Select Committee for choosing this as her first inquiry. It's an incredibly important area. This government is committed to the algorithmic transparency recording standard. The previous government reneged on its commitment to have individual departments releasing their standard statement each year. This government is committed to doing so again and will remain committed to reinforcing the fact that algorithms are there to serve people, not the other way around.
Jim Shah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank the Minister very much for that response. Minister, there are many firms in Northern Ireland who have the capability, the experience, to be able to offer some advice in relation to achieving scientific research on AI safety. Has the Minister had I know he's very interested in Northern Ireland. Has the Minister had an opportunity to speak to the companies in Northern Ireland so we can play our part and how we take this forward? Thank you.
I'm very grateful for the honourable gentleman's comment, and also reflecting the fact that acknowledging the interest that I have in Northern Ireland. I've visited Northern Ireland already since being appointed to meet some of the pioneering tech companies that are there. I will stay committed to making sure that this government recognises the talent that is across Northern Ireland, harnessing it for not just the domestic good, but the global good too.
Alex Baker.
Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, the UK's rollout of 5G has been far too slow. According to OpenSignal, the UK ranks 22nd out of 25 European countries for 5G download speeds and availability after 14 years of Conservative rule. We're determined to change that, aiming to have higher quality standalone 5G in all populated areas by 2030.
Please, Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Access to 5G data is a real issue in Aldershot. According to Ofcom, a third of our households cannot connect to 5G, nearly 3 times the national average. What is the government doing to give residents in Aldershot and Farnborough the same data access as the rest of the country? And will the Minister make this work a priority?
She's absolutely right. It has to be a priority, both for businesses, for families, for everybody engaged in her constituency, but it also for public sector. We want the MOD, for instance, in her constituency to be able to have the highest quality data access possible so that we can deliver a more effective government, a more productive government across the whole of the United Kingdom, and this will indeed be a priority for us.
Ben Way.
There's been great improvements to connectivity across Ceredigion, Preseli, but there remain total mobile hotspots such as Porthgain and a growing body of evidence collected locally that the connectivity reported by Ofcom doesn't quite stack up with the lived experience on the ground. Would the Minister care to meet with me so that I can present some of this evidence collected by local authorities in Ceredigion and Preseli to see how we can address this problem?
Well, he's just said what I said a few minutes ago, which is great to see that Plaid Cymru are signing up to the Labour Party's agenda these days. But what is upsetting is that he forgot to mention that we've only recently had 7 more high-quality masts extending better coverage of 4G in Wales specifically, only in the last couple of months. But of course I'm happy to meet with him, and I'm very happy to place in a copy in the library of the letter that I've had from Ofcom that makes the very precise point that we need to do much better in recognising the real experience of people's mobile connectivity rather than the theoretical, ethereal version.
Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question 8, sir.
Mr. Speaker, there are over 30 Project Gigabit contracts currently in place with a total value of almost £2 billion and more in the pipeline. In the past few months, the first premises have been connected as part of Project Gigabit contracts in areas including Norfolk, West Yorkshire and South Wiltshire, and the build has now started in earnest in other parts of the country as well.
Sean Davies.
Speaker, I welcome the progress this government is making on the rollout of gigabit to all corners of the country, but in Telford, the inequality remains stark, with some wards having complete gigabit coverage, but areas like the World Heritage Site in Iron Bridge having almost none. Can the government confirm, as part of its agenda to break down the barriers of opportunity, that includes residents and businesses and World Heritage Sites that cannot get online?
Well, the World Heritage aspects of Iron Bridge relate to my DCMS responsibilities, but he's absolutely right about Iron Bridge, and I very much hope that we will be able to announce something very shortly in relation to extending gigabit coverage through a procurement via OpenReach in his constituency.
Graham Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Minister will be aware that there's a really strong link between communication technology and the rollout of smart meter technology, and in areas in the North Scotland that are suffering cold weather, particularly at the moment, that connectivity is really important for those alternative technologies to work. What discussions has he had with the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero on that issue?
He's absolutely right. There are a whole series of issues about the security and safety of connectivity in areas which suffer particular weather conditions. We had a very successful summit on Monday morning to discuss the closing down of the PSTN network to make sure that everybody's going to be secure. But I can also assure him that we will work very closely with the Scottish Government to make sure that the rollout in all of these areas works for the interests of businesses, whatever the weather conditions.
We come to Topicals, Dr. Becky Cooper.
Question number 1, please, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To protect people online, today I became the first Secretary of State to exercise the power to set out my strategic online safety proposals for Ofcom to consider. From increasing transparency to baking safety into social media platforms from the outset, these priorities will support government to monitor progress to act where our laws are coming up short. I've also launched a new research project to explore the impact of social media on young people's well-being and their mental health.
Becky Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Each year, millions of patients in England attend 2 or more different hospital trusts. Most of the trusts that commonly see the same patients do not use the same record systems. What steps is the Minister now taking with Cabinet colleagues to utilise the Centre for Data Collaboration and other available technology to improve data sharing across NHS hospital trusts?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What a pleasure it is to speak to another Labour MP from Sussex from the dispatch box. This is a Department of Health responsibility, but on their behalf, in the the Data Use and Access Bill will include a requirement that IT providers in the NHS have to meet information standards. This will deliver the interoperability that is needed so that data can be shared across the NHS, often for the very first time.
Shadow Minister Alan Mack.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, we're proud that it was the last Conservative government that created the Department for Science, Innovation and Technology, and I'm glad Labour are following our agenda, and I look forward to my exchanges with the Secretary of State. Mr. Speaker, under the last Conservative government, Britain was home to more billion-dollar tech start-ups than France and Germany combined. But last month, an industry survey found that nearly 90% of tech founders would consider leaving Britain if Labour raised taxes on tech businesses. Yesterday, Labour U-turned on policy in Scotland. So today, will the Secretary of State commit to reversing Labour's jobs tax, which damages tech businesses across the entire country, Mr. Speaker?
Can I welcome the honourable gentleman to his post? We worked together on the Fourth Industrial Revolution all-party group, which he chaired, and I look forward to having a constructive relationship going forward. He mentioned the last Labour government. I think the way they're going on, it would have been the last Labour government that we see. But to be honest, the circumstances that businesses have asked for, large and small, operating in a tech landscape, a smooth regulatory process. We have delivered regulatory reform already. Reform to planning. We've delivered the reform to the planning system. A stable financial settlement. We have delivered that with a budget forward.
Please, it's Topicals. And we'll see a very good example from the Shadow Secretary of State, Alan Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the Secretary of State for his kind words, but he has punished Labour, and figures from his own department show that workers will be losing out by nearly £800 per worker per year as a result of Labour's budget. So will he stand up to the Chancellor and oppose any further tax rises on Britain's hard-working tech sector?
The budget gave a pay rise for working people in this country and set the conditions for a stable economy, fixing the black hole that was left in our economy by mismanagement of this government.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last week I was at London City Airport's STEM event, which brought together 500 students from secondary schools across East London. Does the Secretary of State agree with me that if we're going to have thriving STEM industries, we need more engagement events like this?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Outside the classroom, the Cyber First programme has engaged 250,000 young people across the UK. This is the first steps. This government will be going further.
Well, Blackman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Recently, Mr. Speaker, recently I hosted a briefing event for the People for Ethical Treatment of Animals, where strong evidence was presented that almost all drug research and research into other products could be done without abusing animals. So will the Secretary of State take up the opportunity to actually make sure that we no longer experiment on animals and actually use other methods to get products into service?
I'm really grateful for the question from the honourable gentleman. The first job I ever had was at the Body Shop working for Anita Roddick and joined her campaign against animal testing for cosmetics. She would be very proud to see me at the dispatch box engaging in this conversation at the moment. A manifesto commitment for this party, the Labour Party in government, is to phase out into the long-term use of animal testing. That is something we're committed to. It's something we're taking steps towards.
In Lavery.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The peddling of fake news and disinformation on social media platforms is fueling extremism. It's also impacting heavily on the democratic processes we have in the UK. Can the Minister say what safeguards is being taken by the government to combat this really serious issue?
I'm extremely grateful for the honourable gentleman raising one of the most serious issues of our time. The Online Safety Act requires providers to specifically consider how algorithms will impact a user's exposure to illegal content and the children's exposure to content that is harmful to children as part of their risk assessment. I have introduced new measures to make sure that children are kept safe. Today I issued a statement of strategic priority to Ofcom to insist that they continue to do so into the future.
Sir David Davis, final question.
Mr. Speaker, last year nearly 50 British universities were identified as having research ties with what were deemed to be very high-risk Chinese institutions. Subsequently, the intelligence services briefed 24 universities on resisting the infiltration attempts of foreign agencies, but the Intelligence and Security Committee's report says that it's highly likely that joint UK-China research projects are used for military purposes. What is the department doing to protect both our research and our security?
I'm grateful for the question. This government is working closely both with individual universities, the university sector and our intelligence community to make sure that our research is world-class but is also safe and secure.